So really quickly, I wanted to do a short video because I feel like I might reach a better audience that way rather than a longer form video. And for legal reasons, I have to be very careful with what I'm saying on why UFC BJJ or UFC getting into the Jiu-Jitsu submission grappling space is a bad or could be a bad thing. So for the sake of the video, we're going to presume that the contracts for the UFC Jiu-Jitsu are going to be similar to the UFC contracts, and the goal of what they're trying to achieve for Jiu-Jitsu is going to be similar to what they have achieved for MMA. All right, just for the sake of the video, we're assuming a lot of stuff here. All right, so point number one, we're going to 3 points. Point number one, exclusive contracts. So exclusive contracts essentially means that when you sign with them, to sign with the UFC, you are an independent contractor who essentially is treated like you're an employee, but without any of the benefits. So like you don't get healthcare, for example. And the exclusive contract, that means that if you sign with them, you are only able to compete under the UFC banner. You cannot compete anywhere else unless the UFC says so, which does not happen at all in MMA. They never allow people to fight other than like the one-off McGregor versus Mayweather thing, which was like, again, lightning in a bottle. So if you have a situation where like you have the number one and number two, let's say just for example here, let's say you had Gordon Ryan signed to the UFC and Nicky Rod did not, and let's just say they were both just murdering everybody. They would not get to have a match against each other unless either Nicky Rod signed with the UFC or Gordon finished out his contract and left the UFC and had a match elsewhere with Nicky Rod. That match would just be impossible to happen. Happened time and time again over the years in MMA. A prime example, Fedor Emelianenko was considered the greatest heavyweight at the time, the best heavyweight at the time by the majority of MMA fans. And we never got to see him fight guys like Brock Lesnar, Randy Couture, or whoever else was the champion at the time where he was also fighting. And the contracts themselves, if they're similar to the UFC contracts, they are damn near impossible to get out of or renegotiate many times, unless you're like one of the upper 1%er type guys in the UFC or in the sport. So let's say you sign an eight match deal or an 8-fight deal, whatever you want to call it. And if these contracts work similar how they have worked for the UFC in the past, you have to finish out those 8 matches before you are eligible to either renegotiate with them or go somewhere else. And the way it works is there is a timeline for how long they have to offer you matches. I want to say it's like they have to offer you one, like this could be totally wrong. I got to speak very carefully here, not in absolutes. Let's say they have to offer you a match every 6 months. If you turn it down, the contract gets extended and they don't have to offer you another match for so-and-so time period. Okay. So let's just say, for example, you win 3 or 4 matches in a row and you're becoming like a star. Your social media is like going through the roof. You can see the viewership on your matches is like the big thing. Everyone's like watching these events for you to watch your matches. You are in the midst of your contract. You have like 4 more fights or matches on your deal. You go to the UFC and like, hey, look, I'm bringing these numbers in. I want to renegotiate so I can get some more money, right? Let's say the negotiating doesn't go well for whatever reason and you get on someone's bad side, right? They might, this has happened a lot, they might start offering you really shitty matchups. They're like, oh, we got this like new guy. Let's say your weakness or something is like leg locks or like wrestling or whatever. They're going to be like, okay, we got this new guy. His whole thing is like leg locks. We're going to put you against this fucking guy because we don't like you. And we want to see you lose. So if you turn it down, now your contract is extended. Okay. And you have to wait another like 6 months or whatever it is before they even have to offer you another match and you're not making any money. Okay. If you accept it, what they're going to try to do is hope that you just get frustrated and start accepting these shitty matchups so they can send you off when the contract is done. They can send you off on a losing streak, right? You've just lost 3 in a row. They give you 3 terrible matchups to finish out your contract. They'll send you off on a losing streak. So now your stock is lower. So you can't make more money when you get out. They're spiteful as shit like that. They've done it. Almost every time you've heard someone have issues with the contracts, it's been something like this happening to them. Okay. All right. So number 2, the pay is not going to be good. So MMA, the fighters make a total of 13% of the total company's revenue, opposed to like the NFL or NBA or whatever, where they make like roughly like 40%, 50% of the revenue. The pay is not going to be good. And you're only going to get from what I've heard, this is a rumor, I don't know if it's 100% confirmed true or not. Show money, show up, you get $5,000 allegedly, and submission money, $5,000. So not even just a win, it's another $5,000 for submission. So you could beat like one of the best guys in the world, not get a bonus for that at all. Okay, you got to actually finish him, which is really difficult to do against the best guys. But not only is the pay going to be bad, but they're more than likely, if it's like the UFC, they're not going to allow you to have most of your sponsors. They're only going to allow you to have sponsors they choose, which are very limited, and the pay for the sponsors is going to be relatively low. Back in the day, in the early days of the UFC, they would allow people to wear sponsors in their shorts, and that's how they would say, like, well, we're not paying them a lot, but they get a shit ton of money from any sponsor they really want, and that kind of like negates it. Another fun fact here, the UFC, the fighters make less now, including accounting for inflation, they make less now than they did in 2005. Think about that for a second, how much more shit costs today. They make less than in 2005, okay? So Jiu-Jitsu is a much more niche sport than MMA. I mean, MMA is on ESPN and shit now. So yeah, they're not going to be allowed either sponsors. The sponsorships, they want to see you wearing their gear in these matches. They're not going to allow it to happen more than likely if it's the same as the UFC. So we're under that presumption here. But yeah, the pay is not going to be great. And yeah, the UFC, there's a lot of competitions you would go to where you're not going to make any money at all and make very limited money, but sponsorships tend to like level that out pretty good. And then you have things like ADCC, CGI, whatever, and these like one-off tournaments and stuff on Flow Grappling that you can make some decent money from. So yeah, pay not great. Okay, and I got to be very careful about the way I'm saying this right now, but monopolies do not get better over time. Okay, there's a lot of information here about fighter pay and control in the MMA industry. I'll just say this: 90% of every dollar is made by the UFC in the sport of mixed martial arts. They have 80% roughly of the they have 80% of the world's best talent or more. Okay, the other organizations do not make any money because it is damn near impossible to make money because of the way the structure of the organization, the way the business runs in the UFC. They constantly have talent being funneled in through things like Dana White's Contender Series and these ruthless contracts that people get locked into to get more eyes on them and that sort of thing. But that's up to you to decide and do your own research on. But monopolies do not get better over time, okay? The way a monopoly works, or the reason why it doesn't get better over time, is because they have no competition to go up against. So rather than trying to cater to fans, like because they're like, this thing is on at the same time or same week, we got to compete with them. We want the people to watch our thing, not their thing. So let's make our thing really, really fucking good and like get this really good talent stuff in our thing. They have no reason to because they control everything. They already own them. There's no incentive. Why would they? The only incentive for them is to put more money in their own pockets. Okay, they don't give a fuck about what the fans think. They only care about making as much money as possible. What tends to happen is they start to get bigger, but not better. That's almost always what happens. So, you know, I guess be careful here. But if you are an old school fan and you grew up watching the UFC in the 90s, you understand the MMA today is incredibly watered down. Yeah, it's a lot bigger. There's a lot more cards. There's also way more shitty cards. The pay-per-views are rarely good, or I shouldn't say rarely good, but they're rarely as good as they once were. There's a lot of top 15 talent on main cards these days. And you're generally not getting your money's worth in terms of card quality. You're getting a great quantity, but not quality in general. There's still some great cards, obviously, like UFC 300 and whatnot. But yeah, so let's just say, for example, Jiu-Jitsu becomes they become the dominating force in Jiu-Jitsu and make it so there's no other competition against them. They're probably going to start out really, really good. My strategy would be similarly to how the UFC started. It's going to start out great with the cards being stacked. I would stack the cards with the best matchups possible, get the most eyes on possible, get people watching week to week to where it becomes a routine. This is like the thing we do now. We watch this card every week or every month or whatever. Get a regular fan base and then drowns out the contracts and everything else, drowns out the competition, then over time, you don't have that same incentive because there's no one to compete against to get better, to make sure they're watching your product and not theirs. So it ends up just kind of becoming more bland, and you get more, but less quality. So those are my top 3 things why sport. There's a lot of other reasons too, a lot of the cons. There's some pros as well, but those are my top 3 cons. And there's a lot of research out there on this kind of stuff. You can go look into the work of John S. Nash, Luke Thomas. Just Google these things about like fighter pay, fighter contracts, class action lawsuits against the UFC, court documents, stuff like that. It's not very hard to find. And thanks for watching.